Now today's case is a case that I really wanted to do. It's a case that's going to bring together some of your questions and answer them really. Is when we talk about perpetrators that have been released out early on parole. The case today is Helen McCourt case. It's a 1988 case. It's Merseyside, United Kingdom, UK case. This case is really now as important as it was even then. And it holds so much importance for other cases and up and coming cases in the future. This is a really important case, legal history case really. And it's really down to one woman, Helen McCourt's mother, Marie. This woman fought for the law to be changed. And this case then comes about into Helens Law. And that's what's really going to take coverage of this case and also brings other cases into it. Now, I warn you now, it's not a straightforward case. All we've won, made the law change. The law doesn't work like that, and I'll explain that to you as we go further down this case. So let's start with Helen. This 22-year-old, lived in a small village just on the outskirts of in Merseyside, just a little village. She was used to get the bus to and from work. She did drive, but it was easier actually to get the bus in to work, and she used to get the bus home. She'd done that regularly for a very, very long time. She was an insurance clerk, and she had a great family, a great mother and a great family, and she'd just met a new boyfriend, and she was happy. She was living her life. But a few days before the 9th of February 1998, the day she disappeared. As I said, she lives close to this local pub, so it's quite a little village with a little local pub in it. And there was a landlord in this pub, and his name is Ian Sims, and he was 31 at that time. So she used to go to a local pub, finish work, go to a local pub, have a drink. And then this Ian Sims started working there. And he sort of would say sort of things, sexual things. He's a bit of a narcissist. Well, he is a narcissist, this man, and it shows actually more in this case. So he would make sexual advances towards Helen. She didn't like it, and she wasn't a stupid girl. She was quite a strong girl, quite opinionated, and she weren't having none of it. And she told him as well, stop, I'm not interested. He didn't like this, because narcissists don't like to be told no, and they because they think, well, look at me, and you see this picture of this man, no way was a good-looking 22-year-old girl going to be attracted to this man. But then what she did say to him was that in the middle of all these advances, and where he was sort of being a bit nasty to her because she was holding back these advances, she said, but you're seeing a 22-year-old or a 21-year-old waitress, and you're married and you have 2 children. And I think it was that statement that made Ian Sims think that she was going to tell on him. So he really, over the next few days after this really incident that they had, he was really talking about her in a derogatory manner, very nasty manner, to other publicans and people that she knew. And he also barred her from this pub, so she wasn't allowed in this pub. And to tell the truth, I think at that time she didn't care, because this man was such an obnoxious man. She was glad to get rid of him, to tell you the truth. So Helen continued to go on about her day and her life, going to work, getting up in the morning, getting ready, just met this new lad, really happy, family happy. She goes to work on the 9th of February 1988, and we know she was at work, and we know she rang her mum at 4 p.m. to say, listen mum, I'm on my way home. I'm going to have to get ready quick because I'm going out on a date, so if you can put my dinner on so I can wash my hair, I'll be really grateful. And I think the mum and her had such a great relationship. The mum was really happy for her that she'd found someone, and she was really happy about it. So she was expecting Helen home at 5:30 to have this dinner, ready, so she could, wash the hair, get ready to go out. And Helen never showed up. And it turns out that Helen got off her bus about 400 to 500 yards away from her home. So you had the bus stop here and Helen's home here. In the middle of that was the pub where Ian Sims was there waiting for her on that day. As she walked past that pub, he dragged her in. We don't know what's happened because they've never found the body, and he's never actually even admitted this crime, let alone anything else. She was, we know she was dragged in, only by forensic evidence we know that. She was attacked on the stairs and she was dragged upstairs, attacked in the room, then dragged back down the stairs as a dead body weight, because we know that because some of the people, the witnesses, have said they heard a bit of screaming, didn't know where it was coming from, but one of the pub people, the bartenders in the pub, remembered hearing a noise of something being brought down the stairs, like a heavy weight, like a suitcase would be if it was full or something. So, but again, he was busy, and in them days the pubs were busy, and in February, we are talking about February in England, it's dark at 4, so not much you can see not much going on, unless it's really lit, which it wouldn't have been in 1988, and again, no CCTV in 1988. So of course this man then puts her in his car and he drives off somewhere and he dumps this body, and this girl has never been seen since that day. Not a sign of her. A few days later, after the murder, after the mother and the boyfriend, everyone else had searched this girl and reported this girl missing, with literally just disappeared. So they knew she got off the bus. So it's very, to be taken from getting off a bus and 400 to 500 yards from your home, someone local has done that murder, really. And so I think right at first, the fingers were pointing at Ian Sims as the perpetrator here. So he was arrested under the suspicion of murder. The next day, or the day after that, there was a black bag, like a bin liner bag, full of clothes and bloody towels and stuff, thrown in to a local river there. Again, because he threw it in the water, but it was in a sealed bag, there was still evidence that could be gained from that evidence. Again, a couple of days later after that, there was also another bag found of men's clothing and also blood on towels and things like that. And again, that DNA and matched to Ian Sims, and it was his clothes. Now, he did dispute this evidence against him because in them days, in 1988, DNA wasn't what it was today. We all admit it, we all know that. But there was so much evidence here that they knew within a few thousand people that he had done it. Plus, because the radius from where she went missing in her home, and also this argument and this hatred that he had towards her, all pointed to him, really. So the evidence on this man was overwhelming. And as usual with perpetrators, what they love to say is that I didn't do it. And his explanation for why his DNA was there and why Helen's DNA, and including a pair of trousers, the fibres from a pair of trousers of Helen's, navy blue trousers, which were found in this bag. The fibres were also found in Ian Sims' accommodation within this pub. The problem is how he couldn't get out of it, is Helen had only brought them the day before. She had already been barred from this pub before she brought the trousers. And that's the only day she wore them trousers, was on that day to go to work. And them fibres from that trousers were found in Ian Sims' accommodation. So he really did this crime, even though to this day this man has never admitted it. And if that DNA evidence was now put in now, I think they have done some DNA extra testing, it's about 9 million to 1. So his excuse, you must hear it, it is absolutely ridiculous. So what Ian Sims said about why his DNA and blood and everything else of her blood and her DNA and his blood and his DNA was, brought into this case is because that somebody, not him, came into that pub. They waited for Helen, dragged her into that pub, murdered her in that pub, then dragged her back out of that pub into Ian Sims's car, because there was DNA evidence of blood and stuff found in his car and in his boot of his car that belonged to Helen. But again, he didn't do it. It was this person that's come in and done all this stuff. So now they've put the body in the car. They then dumped the body. Then they brought the car back to this pub, hung the keys back up and dumped the clothes. But it had nothing to do with Ian Sims. So I think you know the conclusion of the jury when they come back with their verdicts, and it was guilty of murder because they knew she had been murdered by the amount of blood and evidence that was found. This case, though, because it was 1988, DNA, as I said, wasn't as good as it is today. So this was the first case in DNA, and the first case where someone had been charged and convicted of murder without a body. This was it's from day one. This case has been really in the news and in historic meaning in our law for many, many different reasons. So now we have this man who's been sent to prison. He had life in prison, which is about 25 years in this country, and he had a minimum sentence, again a tariff put on him of 16 years. He had gone for a parole a few times throughout the years, but he hasn't got it. One, because he's never admitted his guilt, and two, because he won't say where the body is. But he is back up for parole, or he was back up for parole in 2019. We'll go on to that in a minute. So in the meantime, in 2015, because of he's an absolute disgrace, really, this man. He taunted her family, Helen's family. He taunted them. He painted pictures, provocative pictures. He wrote letters. Never given a minute's rest, really. By 2015, Helen's mother had had enough. She wanted, one, to get justice and stop this man coming out on parole, and two, she wanted her daughter back. She knew she was dead, but she wanted her daughter back to bury her daughter, and he just wouldn't say. So she continued to pressure and campaign for the law to be changed, and it was called Helens Law. She was fighting for it. So no body, no parole. And I think it reads, actually, it wasn't just about perpetrators that murder and hide bodies, and we've spoke about why they do this, and there's many reasons why they do it, and usually a lot of the time also is because evidence. The body holds a lot of evidence, and the longer its remains are out there, it's much more difficult. Or they thought in them days to get DNA from old remains. It's not so difficult now. So I think let me just explain to you about what Helens Law is. So in May 2019, so in 2015, this woman fought to get Helens Law into law, to be enacted. That means that you could rely on that statute. From 2015 up to 2019, to tell the truth, we've had different members of parliament, we've had different prime ministers, we've had a couple of general elections, we've had lots and lots of stuff, we've had Brexit, and so all this stuff has stopped a lot of other important stuff coming through, and this was one of them important laws that needed to be changed, that was stopped really because of all this what's been going on in the years leading up to it. But in 2019 it really was announced that there was plans to change the law, and it was going to go through it, going now to its second reading, and so then it would soon be get Royal Assent, and then it would then be enacted into law. And this was great, and the law, it says it was to place greater consideration. Now remember, law is all about words, it's all about the wording. So to place greater consideration on the failure to disclose the location of remains. So these are about people that we know are dead. They suspect without a reasonable doubt that they are dead. So we're talking about remains here. We're not now trying to find a person, we're talking about the remains. So Helens Law, it requires the person convicted to reveal the location of their victims' remains before being considered for parole. Before being considered. That's what it should be. So on the 20th or on the 14th of November 2020, this law, Helens Law, came in and did have Royal Assent and came into law. Then it was enacted. That means it's there. That means you can rely on it. But again, I said to you about the law, didn't I? It's about this reliance on it. So when you're studying law, the first thing you have to really learn, I think first or second year, is about statutory interpretation, because statutes and laws are massive. They're massive. They're very, very written in legal terminology, and so the interpretation of that has to be put out. Also, statutes can't be static. They can't be straightforward black and white. They have to have variables and movements in them to make them work, or else we would never be able to do anything. So the wording in statutes are very, very important. Now in this law, Helens Law, it states that, again, the Parole Board must consider that these perpetrators have not given up the body. So should they then be eligible for parole? But what this does is that the Parole Board have their own set of requirements, and whether they are then conflicting is hard to say. So Helens Law, it places a statutory obligation onto the Parole Board to consider an offender's non-disclosure. So not saying where the body is, they chose to hold it back. And certain information that's even dealing with indecent images and photographs of children. And the reason why it takes in child sex offences into it, and because we had a case, I think, of Vanessa George. Now, Vanessa George case is a case that I'm going to do very shortly, and you'll see why. But Vanessa George was a nursery worker, a daycare centre worker, working with very vulnerable children. She was also a member of a paedophile gang, and I think it's known that she was sentenced for quite a long time. I think her sentence was 1992, and again she come up for appeal in 2019. So remember that in a minute as well. But I think her offences were 64 children that she was indicted on offences of child sexual abuse and distributing images of children, but also distributing them within this group. Also, she wouldn't tell how many other children they were abused, and she also wouldn't reveal the other members of the paedophile group. So there was this law, this Helens Law, will also can be relied on when it comes to allowing these sort of people parole. So it's not only murderers and people that are not disclosing where the bodies are. It's about not disclosing who else your crime has affected, or who was an accomplice within your crime. You won't get out on parole, or so it seems. So we know this was now coming up in 2019 because it's been stated by the government. It's going through. It's done its first reading. It was on its second reading. It was now coming through. And try and guess what they did? They released Ian Sims from prison on parole just before this. They also released in 2019 at the same time Vanessa George, again before this law came in. They could have held off, but they didn't. They just didn't. They released him. Temporary release, yes. But after this law then was enacted, have the Royal Assent, it's enacted, it's now law, they could have recalled them. They didn't. Now, Helen's mother, before this parole in 2019, fought to keep this man in, not to get this parole, and in court fees it cost her £40,000. He's now out. He was released, as was Vanessa George, released in 2019. Now, if Helen's mother has stated that she wanted to appeal the Parole Board's decision and have him recalled. If she does that, it will cost her a minimum of £750,000. And to tell you the truth, whether this law is in place or not, she can't rely on that law. We can't really rely on that law, to tell you the truth, that they're going to do the right thing, because the law says they only have to consider it. They only have to consider the fact that they haven't told or disclosed where these bodies are. Not that they have to. It doesn't say, if you don't disclose, you ain't getting out. It doesn't say that. So Helen McCourt's mother could lose, and possibly would lose, to tell you the truth, because this man served his time. He hadn't got parole a few times. He's out on limited licence, so limited licence, and could be recalled at any point if he'd done anything else wrong. So for Helen McCourt's mother, this is a shocking outcome. Great in one way, because she's achieved what she's achieved through sheer hard work, the persistence of this woman. Listen, the law in this country is not easy, and it is certainly not easy to have laws changed or to introduce new laws. It's really not. It's amazing what this woman's done, and she may not gain the benefit from this, but I'm hoping that others will. And one of them cases that I'm hoping will, and I'll be watching for this, is the case of Daniel Jones. Now, Daniel Jones's uncle, Stuart Campbell, is due to be released. Now, this law is now in place. But again, it's about the reliance on whether the Parole Board will use this to the full extent of their law and hold this man in and say, no, you're not eligible for parole because you will not disclose where this child's body is. But I don't know if they're going to do that, because really, when you read the small print, when you read the statute, they only have to consider that law. They don't have to act upon it, because they have their own laws. And if he's done everything he should have done, just to rely on this law could open up lots of challenges, I think. I think this is going to be quite a controversial law. I think people, the public, were going to want to see this law in place. They're going to want to see it being pushed and used. But I think with the Parole Board, I don't know if they're going to just take it on board. They should do, but whether they will, because they actually don't have to. They just have to consider it as an option. Just consider. Now again, Stuart Campbell is a little bit like Ian Sims. Always said, I didn't do it, didn't do it, wasn't me. All the evidence against me is, false. Oh God, I hope really do. I hope that this law, with this Stuart Campbell, really works. Because, I'm going to be devastated if it doesn't, to tell the truth. When you do the law, and I have a lot of comments about the police and how they, search and they investigate and they do everything they can, and then they go to court and these people either get off or they get very minimal sentencing. Well, this will be, won't it, if this law's not, really taken up and really put out. Because when you read this law, and I'm going to say this from a legal point of view, when you read the statute, it does not state that. So when I look at it, I think, is it a gesture to the families of these missing girls? The government's given you something, hope, but it's a gesture. It's not real unless someone like the Parole Board use it. And that's what I'm really hoping they do, because without this law really being pushed and used the way it should be used, these girls will never ever be found. And there's so many more than the ones that I mentioned, and there's so many more than the cases that I've even done, the ones I'm going to do. There is so many, I can't tell you how many people still haven't got their children back. So many. So if this law is used properly, we might just have a chance. but I'm not holding my breath. And that's a shocking thing for me to say, I know, but I know the law and I know the Parole Board. And I think what has the government done by writing this statute the way it is, this law, is to pass the buck. Because if, say, Stuart Campbell comes out in November 21, who are we going to blame? Not going to blame the government. They're going to say, I've done our bit, we've done, we've agreed with the law, and they did agree with it, and they've released it out. The buck then will come back to the Parole Board, and so will public opinion come back to them. So if nothing else, they need to use this law to make sure that we have got some respect for these people in these, where they should really examine each case. And I actually do agree, if there is nobody, if you will not disclose where you've put them bodies, or if you will not disclose who else you have abused or hurt, and you will not, say who your accomplices were, then you should stay in prison until you do. So I actually am really, really going to look out for this case, these next cases coming up, and also this law, how it's used by this Parole Board, and I will keep you updated. So I know this case is a little bit different from normal, but it really will bring in to all the other cases we're doing, and hopefully answer some of your questions about this new law and the parole, and where you may now see people being refused. That's why. And it comes down to Helen's Law, but it really comes down to Helen's mother. She needs great praise for this. Really, I can't believe that someone has sacrificed, and she has sacrificed a lot to do what she's done, to help. She knew it may not help her when she started this, but she's done it to help others, and I think we should all be grateful for that. So I think I really hope that you've found this case really interesting.